Hi everybody, my name is Jim. Welcome to Sprague Woodturning. So this week we're actually going to do an urn. And so my buddy Troy unfortunately lost his mom a couple of years ago. And we've featured this Boxelder Burl a number of times on the channel. But it is quite punky. There is a lot of voids in it. So it will require resin casting for sure. If everything goes well, they should make really fantastic urns. I'm going to do 3 urns for Troy and his family. We're just going to show one here on the channel. You know, like I said, when this is cast, it should be really, really nice if all goes well. Fingers crossed. Okay, so if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing that. And of course, a thumbs up will certainly help with the analytics. And sharing my videos on our social media platforms is 100% a bonus as well, so please do that. All right, so let's get this rounded, and then we'll go from there after that.
I decided to use paste wax in the mold this week, and we'll see later on in the video that actually worked quite well. So thanks to whoever suggested that. I'm sorry, I can't remember your name right now. But, you know, just trying to clean up all this burl and pick out all the, there was actually even mud inside of this thing. So tons of stuff to clean up.
We're going to be using the deep cast from Designer Epoxy. What I've got here is actually an old Tim Hortons cup, and I've marked a line on it. The great thing about this epoxy is it's a 2-to-1, so that means 2 parts A to 1 part B, and if you wish, you can use any mixing or any cup to do your measuring. It just pay attention to where the line is, and you can use it for A and B. It is preferred to mix it in the same container. But this is also a good way to recycle cups. If you are going to use the same cup, make sure that you scrape it out well so that it doesn't throw off the ratio when you're mixing it up. So I have no idea if this is going to be enough epoxy or not. It's very hard to tell. We are going to put this piece in the vacuum chamber before we put it in the pressure pot. This is a great thing about this deep cast. We got 2 hours of open time to work it. So that's what we're going to do. Alright, so Troy says he wants pearl red, so that's what we're going to use. It's important to scrape the side walls of the bucket as well, and the very bottom. I guess we need a lot more. So this is the same amount. I know that after this goes into the vacuum chamber that the level in here is going to drop substantially. So I think I'll throw the leftover resin into another bucket, and I'll put it in the vacuum chamber as well, just to get rid of any air that might be in it. There, that's good for now. Let's get this in the vacuum chamber.
Since this piece is really kind of on the punky side, or it's got a little bit of dry rot in it by the looks of it, I decided to do this. I'm glad I did, but there's so much air in that Boxelder Burl that I really had to constantly feather the vacuum. And if you don't understand what I'm doing here, I'm pulling the air out of the piece, and then anything that is submerged in the resin will then draw that resin in, and that way hopefully we don't have any voids and it hardens up this dry rotted punky wood.
All right, so that's been 45 minutes. I don't want to push my luck here. The as you can see, I mean, it's dropped considerably. If this was, say, an inch taller, I could probably pull full vacuum on it, but I can't. I can pull about 22 inches of vacuum and it just starts, anything more than that, it starts to overflow, so that's no good. So anyway, we're just gonna go with this, put it in the pressure pot. I'll top it up with the other resin that I've got in here, and hopefully that's going to be enough. The great thing about this is we want that spikes and everything to be incorporated in the form. So by doing that, if I do have to pour again, this is on the base and you're not going to see it. It's not like it's going to be a big resin pour where you can see there's going to be a witness line. So that's one of the reasons why this went in upside down. I thought that I would show this. I've let this rest for about 10 minutes now, and it has dropped easily 1.5 inches in the bucket. So that gives you an idea of how much air is not only in this piece, but when you use a mechanical mixer like I did, it's going to introduce a lot of water as well, or sorry, a lot of bubbles, not water. So it's something that you really got to be take into account when you're doing these castings. And I'm going to fill it up as high as it will go. Now we'll see you in 2 days. Well, we're out of the pressure pot. Let's see what kind of an adventure it's going to be this week. If you remember, I did put paste wax in this. Part of the problems is the resin's right at the very top here, so it's hard to get anything to break free. But the sidewalls are free, and I think the paste wax has actually worked. It's just, it's just being difficult. Like all these castings seem to be with me. I actually probably should have left that on there so I could pick it up and hold it and then beat on the edge of the bucket. Hey. Well, that was a little bit of effort, but a lot better than the black resin in maple crotch bowl, that's for darn sure. Now, point out a couple of things here, once I move this correctly. So, after I did the initial pour, and I opened it up at the 24-hour mark. Remember, designer epoxy is, usually 36 to 40 hours. And the resin level had dropped this far. So what I did yesterday was mix up some Pro Series and dumped it in on here. It took another 18 ounces of Pro Series. That way we were able to move on with the project today. And I'm not so concerned about there being a witness line up here because there's no voids up here. So I just needed this to really harden up this burl so that we can go ahead with today's project. So There we are. The paste wax is a lot better than that other mold release.
Back again this week using the Hercules. You'll see me use the wool gouge and the Hercules in this video, but it does a good job eating up the resin, that's for sure.
Speed is 1,050.
I should also mention that you've probably seen a cedar shim in there, and I use that to keep the casting from being tilted off to one side. So that's why that's in there if you're curious. For the non-turners and turners that haven't used resin, one of the irritating things with resin is that it keeps getting wrapped around everything that your blank is attached to. I used to stop the lathe and try and pull it all off. Now I leave the lathe running and hit it with the compressed air, and it comes off quite easy.
I'm a little surprised by this. There's some soft areas in here. You can kind of dig your fingernail into a little bit. Not too bad, but I'm surprised. This isn't far from the surface of the bucket, and I thought for sure that it would have penetrated and filled all of this. Don't know why that hasn't happened. But anyway, this is going to be the top of the urn, so I'm going to round this off and then come down and try and make a foot of some sort. But anyway, slow and steady. We're getting it.
When dealing with punky pieces like this that have maybe some dry rot in them, it's probably best to stabilize them first. This had so many voids in it that I didn't think it was going to be an issue, that the resin was going to have a good opportunity to get to those areas because of all the voids and cracks that were in this piece. I will continue to do the other two the same that I did this one, but that's just something to keep in the back of your mind if you ever encounter wood like this. I thought that I would throw this clip in. As you can see, I'm just holding the back end of the handle on the Hercules here with two fingers. If your tool rest is close enough to the work, which in this case it probably could be a little bit closer, there's really not much strain on your body. Being a professional turner, trust me, it's hard on your shoulders and your elbows and pretty much every joint in your body really. So anytime that you can actually take some strain off your body, I certainly I try to do so. So anyway, it's food for thought. Cutting in the foot this week, we're not going to have any more mishaps like we did with the coring last week. So I've decided to go with a really large foot so that I can use the bigger jaws to go with my stronghold chuck. And luckily, we didn't have any issues.
All right, so I'm getting ready to put this in the chuck, and I thought I'd just give you my thoughts on this. There's this big ugly knot that was here that was filled. Looks like it ends here. So, at this stage, I'm a little undecided if I'm going to keep a big wide foot on this. I'm thinking that the widest that I'm probably going to keep is until we can delete this knot out of the equation. but I want this big area here to go into the chuck so that, you know, it can be secured very well, and then we can always thin this out afterwards. Pretty cool. I mean, this detail right here is pretty awesome, actually. And yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot going on here. Got some spalting done in it. Good resin penetration there, but oddly enough, not in some other areas. It's hard, but it's just not kind of how it usually is. Regardless, we should be able to make a really nice form with this. All right, let's get this drilled out. There, the hole's drilled to about 5.5 inches. That's probably, we can refine that a bit tomorrow. And I might, now that I've got this in the chuck, I might actually refine the outside a little bit more before we carry on with hollowing. But that'll be tomorrow. See you then.
I'll just touch on urn sizes. The way it goes is it's basically for 1 pound is 1 cubic inch in size. So if you have an individual that's 200 pounds when they pass, then they're going to need an urn that's 200 cubic inches in size. I actually forgot to measure the inside of this. If I can remember to do it, I will do that and I will post it in the description down below. I failed to mention that we are using the one-way hollowing system. It's a captive system. I shot the footage, I could have swore I did, but like Doug from Pole Barn likes to say, I guess dummy forgot to turn the camera on when doing so. Anyway, this system does have a laser. This is the first time I've been able to really kind of show it on here in the last couple of forums anyway. And the way it works right now, it is set at 3/4 of an inch. So the laser is 3/4 of an inch set away from the very edge of the cutter. As the laser comes out towards the edge of the form and it drops off the side of the form or gets really elongated, then you know you've met that thickness that you have preset. Now the reason why I set it at 3/4 initially was so that I could have a look at the form, see if there's any major issues that needed to be fixed inside before proceeding thinner. If you had to set it at 1/4 of an inch and then you end up having issues that have to be repaired, then you could be in trouble. So I just took it down in steps until I hit 1/4 of an inch thickness.
Right, so that's about a 1/4 inch wall thickness. I don't want to go any thinner than that.
I left that little clip in there so you could actually see how that's all set up. Sometimes it's a little hard to imagine if you've never used one of these systems. And the last couple of hollow forms I've done, I wasn't able to actually use the laser system because the arm that's on the top of it was hitting against the steady rest. So this week we're not using the steady rest, so I was able to use it.
All right, so we're good on the sidewalls. Got a couple little spots that I want to fix in the base. So, you know, I'm just going to turn the cutter like this, and I should be able to get pretty much everything that I want. And I'll move the laser as well so that it's so it can tell me where it's at. There, roughly, just so I have an idea where it is. Lots of thickness in the base, so I'm not really concerned about going through the base. I'm just going to concentrate on working down in here, and then we'll get on to sanding. The opening is just a little bit too small, I should say, to get my sander in. So I'm going to have to open this up a little bit in order to sand in there.
And like I said on the last hollow form, I like to use this sanding method. That's basically a 2-inch or 1.5-inch sanding pad, and those 3.5-inch dipple discs wrap around it, and then that way you can sand the upper part of these hollow forms, and it's a very effective way of doing it. Give it a try, you won't be disappointed.
All right, so here I've mixed up some Pro Series from Designer Epoxy, and yeah, I'm just gonna, there's 3 ounces here, which is more than enough. I'm gonna let this kind of soak and penetrate for a little bit, and then I'm gonna try and suspend this form upside down so it all runs out, so we don't have big heavy finish in the base of this. There, I'll just let that sit for a little bit. That way pretty much all of it comes out, and we'll see you tomorrow. We'll just finish up the outside here, get it sanded, and get its first coat of finish on. So we'll see you then. All right, so it is the next day. I'm going to be using some Starbond thin to harden up any of this grain that you see here. The resin finish on the inside is actually cured up like it usually is. It's kind of you know, bubbly and that kind of business. First coat's always terrible. I'll probably just go with the wood bowl finish for the remainder of the inside. But I think it was important to get that resin coat on the inside so that it would seal up any cracks or any of that kind of business. And you know, you're going to use a fair bit of this, there's no doubt about that. If you're using it like this method. But you know, there's the odd little bubble here. There's really not much to speak of though. But the problem is this grain. It's certain parts of it are really, I don't think maybe the resin got to it. So it's actually kind of, I almost want to call it dry rot. Yeah, that's probably a better word for it. And of course, I'm going to use the accelerator to set it. Careful that it doesn't go down on here. You don't want to basically weld that to the live center. Here, you can tell that there's really good resin penetration in this area. Few areas that were missed. Now we'll give that a minute to set up, and then we'll trim this bad boy up and get this foot smaller. This mark, if you're curious, that's kind of the bottom of the urn. That's where it starts to go in anyway. So anyway, I'm going to take this foot down quite a bit, just to, I don't know, make it a little, I don't know, a little more easy, pleasing to the eye.
So here you'll notice that I'm using the 5/8 bowl gouge, And so I'm just shear scraping here. I've got pretty much the final form that I want, and I just want to strip off that glue and try and cut back any little bit of tear out or um, areas where the wood was soft before the CA glue went on it. I really recommend doing this method. It works quite well. You do use a bit of glue. I probably used about a half an ounce of glue to harden up the surface on this urn, but you know, it worked, and that's the main thing. I should also mention that this is a freshly sharpened gouge, and so you need it to really be sharp when you're doing shear scraping. If you're not getting long ribbons off your shear scrapes, then you know either the tool is dull or you're not using it correctly. And here you see me, I'm just taking that foot down, trying to get rid of that ugly knot that was there. There's still little remnants of it, but for the most part, it's all gone now.
Speed is now 620.
So back again with the 3.5-inch dimple discs from sandpaper.ca. I started at 60 and took this piece all the way to 800 with the dimple discs. Um, Usually I like to have the RPM higher than what you see here today. It was giving me a little bit of vibration, so that's why I dialed it down to a little over 600 for sanding. Anyway, it worked great. As always, after I get done sanding, I like to use the Triple E buffing compound from the BL buffing system, and that removes any little fine scratches before the finish goes on. Here I'm straightening the opening on the urn so that when we make the lid, it's going to snap in there and not have any binding issues. So it was a little rounded from sanding, so that's why I used the parting tool here. Last step is to clean with methyl hydrate before the finish goes on.
All right, so we are going to use wood bowl finish again on this project. Certainly no need for it to be food safe. Do love that first coat finish. All right, so down inside, I'm going to use the same rag. I'm going to grab it with my needle nose pliers, and hopefully this will work good. Yeah, I could use like, like foam brush and this kind of business, but this should work as well. I'll probably just give it the one coat. Remember, we got a resin coat in there already.
Keep in mind that once the ashes go into this urn and it's sealed up, that there's really no reason to ever have it open again. So, you know, the finishing inside of the urn is really not that crucial.
There, it looks pretty good in there. So you should have noticed that I didn't use a glue block on this. And that's just because I could reach in there and grab a hold of this. So I'm not really so concerned about my fingerprints or glove prints on the inside of this piece. And then of course I can just grab it by the tenon. Back this up so we can have a look at this. I mean, it's a very, very pretty piece of wood. Lots going on in it, that's for sure. Okay, so we haven't got a lid made yet, and what I'm going to use is the same Boxelder, and we should be able to get some red in the lid to match the urn. So that's kind of what I'm doing here now. Now I've mixed up some Pro Series. You're only supposed to pour this half inch, but you know, I think this is good. There's not a whole lot of volume anyway. It's only 6 ounces. So I'll get a weight on this so it doesn't float, and put it in the pressure pot, and we'll be able to do this tomorrow. All right, it's next day. We're out of the pressure pot. Yeah, can you tell I was a mechanic before? There we go. I'm going to use the vacuum chuck on this one.
I was just quickly showing there that the top of that, I actually took it over to my belt sander and ground off it nice and flat so that it would sit in the vacuum chuck. Not a lot of room for air here, but I mean, this is another absolute benefit of a vacuum chuck. And so this is actually the underside of the lid, just kind of sizing things up so that it fits properly on the urn. But you know, another way you could have done this was to put a glue block on it to hold it on the top, and then of course turn the tenon on the bottom where it, you know, corresponds and goes into the urn. You definitely want to go easy when you're cutting this tenon. Not a huge problem if it was too small because there's a lot of thickness there. Anyway, once that was done and fit properly, then I held it with the chuck. That way we can finish shaping the very top of the top and the sides. And well, you can pretty much finish it up completely this way.
Well, this isn't done. I just want to pop it off and have a look at it, see if it goes with the piece. It's too big. We need to cut it down a little bit more, make it thinner as well. You know, when it's all sanded up, you know, I think that it's going to be all right. So yeah, I got to take maybe I don't know, 1/16 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch off, probably 1/8 of an inch off the diameter, and I guess we'll take it down to maybe about here, somewhere around there. Anyway, when you're doing these, you got to stop and take these out and check them. That's a good fit. I'm happy with that. So yeah, let's carry on. Let's have a look at this again. This is something that you definitely want to sneak up on. You don't want to go too heavy with this, and then have it not work for you and have to redo it. So I think we definitely need to get a little smaller in diameter for sure. Just thinking about undercutting this as well down here. I do plan on leaving this flat on the top, and that's so that a plaque can go on the top if they wish. I do find that sometimes these are better domed. You can also maybe put a plaque on the face of this as well. And yes, there will be some bite marks left behind by the chuck. This is not a concern. I mean, that's going to be inside the urn, and once it's sealed, you'll never see it again. I could have put maybe a rubber band around it to help prevent it, but you know, like I said, it's really a non-issue. Well, there you go. You know, again, this is a personal preference thing. These tops are probably the same as finials. There'll be a number of people that love it, and there's probably going to be a number of people that hate it. Like I said, I like to have the option where you can put a plaque on the top, like a round little plaque with the details on it. So, you know, I think that to make a flat top urn is, you know, certainly the way that I want to go with it. You could do a finial on the top of this where, you know, it looks like a piece of art. And like I said earlier, maybe something on the face of it. So anyway, let's put the second coat of finish on the urn and get the first coat on the lid. Anyway, what do you think so far? It's a pretty spectacular piece of wood. Resin's pretty darn nice too, I must say. Back with the wood bowl finish. This piece looks like it's going to take 3 coats for sure. We're all done with the inside though. She looks pretty good right now. Even if it does look good, I'm still probably going to give it 3 coats of finish. I want this thing to be sealed up really good. Let's do the lid. So as far as the lid is concerned, what I'm going to do is just give this a real good coat. Then I'm going to mount it in the chuck. And I'll probably just leave it in the chuck. I'm not too concerned about the finish sticking to the jaws. It would not be the first time that has happened. And I'm just going to leave it overnight. Actually, the wife and I are heading to Ottawa. It's going to be our 29th wedding anniversary on Sunday. So we're going to take a weekend and go to Ottawa, do the Rideau Canal tour, and yeah, have a good time. I mean, the important surface here is the top. Make sure that, you know, there's no streaks on it or any of that kind of business. So that's why I've mounted it back in the chuck. I could have easily finished this off the lathe as well, but I find you just get better coverage when you have it mounted in the chuck, and you can just apply the finish evenly. There, you know, it's a very pretty piece of wood as well. Very nice figurative grain in it. The red resin will match up with the other pieces. So yeah, spalting. It's got a little bit of everything in it. All right, we'll see you guys on Monday.
Just turning a little dry block for the urn here. There's certainly some danger here. You can't put too much clamping pressure from the tailstock, you know, for fear that you might crack the urn. So just keep that in mind. But you know, you gotta hold it in place and not be too concerned about it coming out either. So it's just kind of one of those things that you're gonna just have to feel out, and be careful when you're doing so.
Well, that wasn't supposed to happen. If you haven't been here before, this is how I sometimes fix little voids in the pieces. Just take a little bit of pigment, clear thin Starbond. Sometimes I will mix it in the actual bottle, but in this case I don't think we need to. Just mix that up a little bit. think the pigment needs to be a little bit stronger to match. There, I'm not going to use any accelerator on that because I don't want any foaming to happen. So it's lunchtime. Hopefully when I come back from lunchtime this will be cured, and then we'll sand this up and get the information on the bottom of it and get a coat finish on the bottom.
What I also could have done in this case was take it over to the drill press and use a Forstner bit and drill down to make kind of a mortise, if you will. But, you know, very tough to get that lined up perfectly.
All right, so before we talk about this week's project, I want to talk about Kim Tippin. Kim Tippin and her family, anyway, they're trying to build a house. And so they sold their house they're in, and they ended up buying a trailer that's full of mold. It's a real nightmare situation for Kim and her family. And anyways, as a parent, I certainly understand what she's going through to have to deal with this. And, you know, she was talking about selling her tools in order to pay for the trailer, and we can't do that. Kim, we need Kim here on YouTube. So Dan Priest has set up a GoFundMe page, and you can actually go right to Kim Tippin's site as well in her PayPal donations. She has a link down there in the description of her video. I will link her video at the end of this one so that you fully understand what's going on. Anyway, it's truly a nightmare situation, and Kim, anyway, we're all thinking about you. Lots of traffic going by today. Hey, the doors are open. So anyway, if you can help Kim out, that would be greatly appreciated. I'll put all the details in the description down below. All right, so let's talk about the urn. This is an absolutely beautiful piece of wood, and the resin is absolutely awesome as well. That red pearl is just totally cool. There's the very top of the urn. Under the lid is actually maybe even nicer than the top. Troy did have me put in a description on the bottom. It says, "For my loving mom, forever rest in peace." The bottom is a little busy, so it's hard to read it. Hopefully you can. Still need 2 more coats of finish on the very bottom of this, and this will be done. So what I recommend is just a really fine bead of clear silicone around the tenon on this, and then once that goes in, then it's sealed in. And I really recommend doing this in case the urn gets knocked over. You wouldn't want the ashes falling out. And again, that's another reason why it's nice to have some weight in the base as well. They're less likely to fall over in that regard. Yeah, you know, I don't think there's any greater honor than to have somebody commission you to do pieces like this for their, you know, the final rest in peace of their loved ones. So, you know, it's truly an honor to do this for Troy and his family. I did measure the volume of this, and you can put 7 cups in here. So 1 cup equals 14.44 cubic inches. So that means an individual that's 101 pounds can fit inside of this urn. So, you know, with the 3 urns, there should be no issue there at all. Yeah, let me know what you think about this week's project. Very cool piece of wood. You know, and I mean, for all intents and purposes, when you take the lid off it, it's a vase. Very similar to the one we did a couple of weeks ago without all the issues, if you remember. And yeah, so let me know in the comments what you think about this week's video. Don't forget about our sponsors, sandpaper.ca, Starbond Adhesives, Hunter Tool Systems, and Designer Epoxy. Another great example of Designer Epoxy. So we're coming up on 30,000 subscribers, so that means we need to do a 30,000 subscriber giveaway bowl, which we haven't done yet. I'm a little tardy on that. Got a lot on my plate right now. So I'm not exactly sure what it's going to be. We definitely probably have to do it either this week or next week. So anyway, keep an eye out for that. And of course, anytime that I can get a thumbs up on my videos will help with the analytics. Sharing my videos on your social media platforms is 100% awesome as well. And of course, don't forget to comment. All right, well, that's it. Till next week, take care, stay safe. We'll see you then.